Hi, and welcome to the Joyful Rebels podcast. We've got Claire and Donna Thomas here, your mother daughter duo, and we're coming at you this week with another episode of Ask the Joyful Rebels. So, if you tuned in last week, you know that we're trying something new. We're tweaking the format a little bit. We have shared over 75 episodes that have included specific wellness tips based on different topics. And you've heard us say this before. Some of those topics you might have seen the title and been like, oh, yeah, that's something I'm thinking about right now. And some of them, you might just listen and you're saving that. You're saving that information for later, right? You've
Mhm,
got those tools in your toolbox now. So, what we wanted to do, right? We're trying this out. We're scientists, right, Mom? We're experimenting.
mhm.
Um, we're pulling together some different topics and questions that we find interesting that we want to reflect on. And so, this is really quick a call to you all listening. If you follow us on social, we've got a post there. Send us a message. If you've got a question for us or a topic that we haven't covered or one you want us to dig deeper into, because let's be honest, some of them we can only skim the surface in our 20 minutes. Send us a message. We'd love to hear from you. Um, that being said, this week's Ask the Joyful Rebels, here's the question, Mom. I'm going to throw it to you first.
Okay.
Can you recall a specific piece of advice that has helped you to navigate challenges in your life? And what is that? And give us the story behind it.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for the people that did message and were like, "Hey, I'd like to hear about this and this." I love it that you're so plugged in and engaged. I love that we can walk arm in arm through the different seasons with some of the different topics. It's a cool thing and an honor for both of us. So thank you for your engagement. And thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing the links to the podcast and the YouTube stuff if you want to see us like what we actually look like, which at times is better than others. I'm not going to lie. But today I have a button down shirt and I thought that was notable. So we'll go with
You
that.
look very nice. I
Thank you
love
very
it.
much. Same to you. And I love your glasses.
I was gonna say new glasses. So if you see
Yeah.
me like touching them like a Poindexter, you
Super cute. Some advice that I have received that was an easy one for me to look at. I got it from Kimberly Spring Glick, who has been a guest on the pod here. And I remember being in the yoga sector, being in leadership. And after I got my 200-hour certification and the learning that was required with that, I felt because I was in this leadership position, and Kimberly was my boss at the time. I said, "Do you think I should get like more education in this? Because I'm going to be with all these people, just hundreds and hundreds of yoga teachers with lots and lots of experience." And she said something so beautiful. She said, "Yeah, I don't think you need to know more. You just have to apply it." And you have this knowledge, and you can bring it to all these other different sectors of how you interact with people. And so what I took away from that was that you learn something and then you do it and you learn it and you do it. And so that has been super uh, big for me in terms of reducing fear. Like I think I have to be the master, I have to have mastery of certain topics, which is not true. I have to be curious about it and then share what I know. I'm not so worried about being a master. I'd want to be a good student and shepherd of that information and then apply it in different areas of my life. And it also makes it stickier then for me. We've learned that with learning and data banking and getting all this information that as soon as you learn something, do it. And then
know.
it winds up staying and going deeper. It gets out of your frontal lobe here, and it just goes more into the hard drive instead of just being an open tab. So I have appreciated that and really have um, leveraged that advice. And I find that it's become a way of life for me, that it allows me to be less fearful of being afraid of needing the need to know a whole bunch about something. I need to know enough. I need to know enough. And even if my default is to continue to learn more, my behavior is to learn and do. And so, even so, what's the whole point? That even I can have a great thought, I can put it into action, and then that just builds on itself for me. So there's some ways that I show up in the world, like I want to learn more. That doesn't have to be the only driver. You can change your behavior. You can create more peace in your life by showing up in ways that are adaptable as you're continuing to live. So that was a great piece of information for me, and I'm really grateful for Kimberly for saying that because I still apply it. So thanks, Kay. I appreciate all that. I'm going to learn and do. And I mean, I don't know if that looks different for you, Claire, because I know that we are kind of similar in this place, but that's how it's showing up for me. How's it showing up for you?
So I think one thing that's interesting to point out is that when we, look at a list of questions or topics, we do talk before the show, but we're not plotting and planning so that everything's, perfect. Because if I look at what my top piece of advice, and I would say it's very similar to what you said. So I think that especially when you started saying learn and do, like absolutely that I'm not gonna be able to quote you, but the hard drive versus the open tab, like I like that quote. I don't know. That's like a t-shirt quote right there. I like that one. But it's super true. And I think the piece of advice that I came up with for today, the specific advice that has really helped me through challenges. And when if you're listening, have you ever looked back and it's just especially if you're like asking yourself the question, what's some advice, that's really been meaningful? This one for me has just popped up so many different times. It's undeniable. Now, if I hadn't reflected on it, would it have been so obvious? I don't think so, but it's cool when you can do a reflection like this. So for me, it's just do the thing.
Mm,
And you've heard us say this on the Joyful Rebels podcast before, especially recently. I was sharing our first episode, if you remember, time to rewrite your narrative. And mom, when you were talking about YouTube and actually seeing us, yeah, we looked quite a bit different then, right? I mean, it was almost 2 years ago. It's fun. And you can see me kind of like trying to talk to you through my hand motions because I'm like, oh, we're being recorded. Like, it's funny. It's awesome. But one of the things that we talk about in that episode is just doing the thing. Did we feel 100% ready to do a podcast? No. Oh God, no. But we're having these conversations. We we're both benefiting from talking to each other. Why not, share with more people? We're going to have the conversations anyway, so let's get it out there to more people. And so that's a more recent example of doing it, but I think uh just do the thing. If we look at the meaning behind it for me, it's also this idea that you're never really ready. You're
mm,
never really 100%. And this is how I feel, right? This is personally how I feel. Maybe it's a question. Are you ever really 100% ready to do something? And what I'm thinking of, what comes to mind is when I was pregnant with my first daughter,
mm,
Ella, I was 26, which now feels like super young. And I remember I was just, I was living out of the country, and it just being pregnant, if you have ever, feels very overwhelming, right? It's a lot changes after that. I remember talking, mom, I was talking to dad and kind of
mm,
just expressing how, yeah, it's a lot going on. And I remember dad, he posed it as a question. He goes, yeah, are you ever really ready? I'm like, I'm not ready. Are you ever really ready? He's like, I think that, all because I had mentioned I was reading books and trying to, watch videos, everything I can learn about, child rearing. Are you ever really ready? And that was so comforting in the moment because no, there's too many unknowns, right? And
yeah.
I think that that just translates to so many situations in life. You can read all the books, you can take all the classes, you can live up here with all the information, but until you're actually out there living it, you can't control for all those unknowns. So
Mm,
instead, unless you want to be paralyzed by fear and never doing anything, you just have to go and do the thing. And it showed up again by just doing this podcast. It showed up when I decided to take yoga teacher training. I didn't feel ready. I didn't feel like we talked about in our 3 myths that we busted about yoga and what people think of as yoga. I didn't think I had the yoga body or the type of practice, that you see all over Instagram. I didn't think I was ready for it. I didn't think I knew enough for the names of Sanskrit poses and all this,
mhm,
but I did it anyways. When I taught my very first yoga class, and like you mentioned, mom, it's 200 hours of training. Like it's pretty intense.
yeah.
And then you go out and you're released into the wild and you go and you
Mm,
actually teach. The first time I taught, I had been in the studio. I was going to take the class and the teacher wasn't able to come in. And they're like, hey,
mm,
you're almost done with your training. You think you can do it? Was I ready? Did I feel ready? No. Did I do it? Yes, I did. And
mhm,
it was one of those, it just felt good to get it out of the way. Did I mess up in the class? Yeah. Was it a good class? Yeah. Right. So,
mhm,
what we hear, I think what I noticed as I was reflecting is when you go and do the thing, you're fighting back against those limiting beliefs that you might be holding
yes.
on to, that you can't do anything unless you're perfect, that it's all or nothing. If I can't do it, 100% the best with every ounce of
Mhm,
effort I have, then I'm not going to do it at all. So you've got some choices. Are you going to remain fearful and not do the thing? or are you going to do it? So if you're listening, what's the thing? What's
Mhm.
a thing, right? Is there a thing that you just haven't done because maybe you've got some excuses, and I have used all of these. Oh,
Yeah.
I need more training. More training will help this. Mom, like you were saying, even when you were talking to Kimberly, I think I need a deeper training in this, more
Yep.
knowledge. I need more time. I need more experience. Blah, blah, blah. Like all these things that we're going to tell ourselves. But sometimes, maybe every time, it's take the leap,
Yeah.
do the thing, because the same thing that you were talking about, mom, and that's why I think it's so funny that our advice is so closely related, is that by doing the thing, it's not that you have this perfect mastery of it, but you're showing yourself that you could, right?
Yeah.
And what are we doing? We're incrementally building up that confidence in ourselves. What is confidence? I trust myself. I went out on a limb, but I trusted I would get through it, and I did.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
survived it. And then what are we building? We're building that momentum to keep moving forward. And so I have at times in my life, this is the last thing I'll say on this. I have at times in my life lived what I felt was a small life. I lived inside my comfort zone, especially when my youngest was a newborn. I lived in my bubble. I did what was comfortable. Granted, I'm living on no sleep and all the other things that new babies entail. Um, but as the kids got older, started to peek out from the comfort zone,
Mhm.
it can be scary, right? So there's that choice you have to make. And just knowing that a bigger, more fulfilling life could be on the other side of it. And to get to there, you have to just do the thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
How does that land with you, mom?
Yeah. I'm nodding my head, and I can have my own examples of being taking a double take and hesitating before I try something. And for me, it looks like, I get to confront my distorted thinking and imposter syndrome, which is
Mm,
which is a thing. And I think everybody's got it in some shape or form. And I think it likes to show up when I'm going to try something new. And well, like it's just going to be around. And we don't have to eliminate it. It's not about eliminating imposter syndrome, because what that does is it helps me kind of review. Do I know enough? Can I try it? Is there an opportunity? And I get a chance to just kind of partner with it. Like, I don't mind walking through this chapter with the imposter syndrome. I just can't let that stop me.
mm,
I'm not going to let it stop me, because then there's an external thing that's having more control over me than what my confidence of. I'm learning to trust myself. I'm learning to try new things. That's more important to me than letting anything external stop me. And that's an important distinction for me, is to take ownership for what I can, be bold. That's where joyful rebel comes from,
mm.
like the boldness of taking a step, an imperfect step, because people understand that. They understand that it's not going to be like this polished thing. And a lot of times, most people, when we're trying something new, if they're in our realm and experience it with us, they're rooting for us as we're rooting for them. So we don't have to eliminate imposter syndrome. We just have to do the thing and continue to turn the confidence building in a realistic way that feels comforting, so that we just keep progressing. And it's a process, and there's a lot of different factors, but if long as we're making some movement in the right direction, to me, that's a life well lived.
Mm.
I'm cool with that. I don't need the all or nothing then. So we can deconstruct some old thought patterns and behaviors while we're creating new ones, and it's all just kind of moving and meshing together. And to me, that creates more of a synergy, which for me creates a little more peace at the end of the day, because when you do the thing, you feel good about it regardless of what the outcome was.
So, for all y'all listening out there, we came to these realizations because we took a moment to reflect, to ask ourselves the question, what's some advice that's been really meaningful? So I invite you to do the same, because it's not always this obvious thing on the tip of your tongue. Take a few moments and think back, what's a piece of advice that's been pivotal for me, or something that's just showed up multiple times and been helpful? And then if you have identified a thing or the thing that you haven't gone for yet, what's our advice, mom? Do the thing, right?
Do it.
Do the thing. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, Rebels.